Hi there, it's Naman. In this video, I'm going to cover the 2014 TSA past paper, showing you what I believe to be the most efficient route to the answer for each question. Question 1. Which of the following best expresses the conclusion of the argument in the passage above? So it's a conclusion question. In the past 15 years, the government has poured millions of pounds into promoting sport to try to increase adult participation. The results show no lasting effect. A survey showed that unless children catch the sport habit between the ages of 7 and 14 years, they are unlikely to participate in sport as an adult, and that the sports they adopt as children are likely to be the sports they play as adults. Schools need and should be given money to give children interest in sport. Spending money trying to persuade adults to take up sport is like locking the stable door after the horse has bolted. So the main conclusion here is indicated by this need and should clause, and we should give money to children to get them to have an interest in sport, and that's connected to the idea that it's much better to give children the money to get them into sport because it's too late once they become an adult. So let's look at the options. A, if people do not gain an interest in sport when they are young, they never will. Okay, so this is connected, as I say, but that's not the main conclusion, which is indicated by the should clause. It's that we need to give money to get the children to have this interest. So B, the government has wasted millions of pounds promoting sport to adults. No. C, the government should give funds. Yes, this is the call to action. D, schools need more time in the curriculum to promote sport. No, it talks about money, not time. And E, the sports children adopt will determine what they play as adults. No. It is C. Question 2. What is the maximum number of days either of them has to drive in a calendar month? Two neighbours work for the same company and share the journey to work, driving alternately in strict rotation. They work Monday to Friday each week and every other Saturday. They always work the same Saturdays as each other. Okay, so it's asking, in this calendar month, they're doing these drives to work every day on an alternate basis. What is the maximum number of days that either one of them is having to drive for this journey in a calendar month? So calendar month, the longest month possible is of course 31 days, and so let's map this out. So we know that definitely includes 4 full weeks. Put them here. Okay, and that takes us to 28 days. There's now 3 more days. So where should the first 3 or the last 3 days go to maximise the number of trips they have to take? Well, they should be work days because they definitely travel to work on work days. And it doesn't really matter which work days. So now let's see, imagining we're one of these people, what is the maximum number of days that we would be driving? So let's say we go on the first day and every other day. Let's say the first Saturday we're working. Then the next Saturday we're not working. And this Saturday we're not working. And let me just check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's right, the answer is C. Question 3. Which of the following is a flaw in the above argument? So flaws are always going to be in the logical structure. Sales of printed books are steadily declining, with sales dropping to a 7-year low in 2011. Independent bookshops are closing all over the country, and chain bookstores are likely to be hit next. Sales of ebooks, meanwhile, are booming, with many predicting that 50% of all books sold within 10 years will be digital downloads. Anecdotal evidence suggests that people enjoy the convenience of digital media. Ebooks have triumphed. They have led readers away from traditional forms of print to a digital world. Okay, this is the key conclusion. Now, ebooks have taken people away from traditional books to this new digital form of book. And the key ways it gets there is firstly, well, printed books are down, ebooks are up, and they're predicted to go up in the future. And so it then comes to the conclusion, well, ebooks have come up because printed books have come down. The flaw here is, of course, that those things may not necessarily be causally related. It may be that ebooks have come up for other reasons, such as attracting readers who didn't used to buy printed books. So let's look at the options. A, it bases conclusions on predictions of future sales rather than hard evidence. No, in this case, it mentions that they are currently booming, and also it's completely reasonable to make that conclusion about the future based on that prediction. B, it ignores the advantages that ebooks have over printed books. This is not an evaluative assessment of which is better, it's about which is more successful. C, it assumes that ebooks have not attracted new readers. Exactly. D, by focusing on the closure of bookshops, it ignores the creation of new electronic markets. Nope, that's entirely unrelated. And E, it cites anecdotal evidence. It does cite anecdotal evidence, but it doesn't use that to get to its conclusion. We could remove this sentence entirely and still, if C was a reasonable assumption, then we could get to the conclusion that they're talking about. So this is irrelevant. Which of the following is an underlying assumption of the above argument? When Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California, he looked for ways to make savings in an effort to balance the California budget. He was particularly concerned about the high cost of school textbooks, which he considered to be outdated. Schwarzenegger, who portrayed a time-travelling robot killer in the Terminator films, in which a computer network takes over the world, looked at information technology to solve the problem of the high cost of textbooks. He proposed that as an alternative to books, students should be given handheld devices that store up-to-date books electronically and allow them access to online work, maths and science. Since students are experienced with computers and will readily accept the new technology, this is not just Hollywood sci-fi, but common sense. So the conclusion of this paragraph is that Schwarzenegger's policy is going to be a reasonable one, or an effective one, to achieve his goal of savings. And what is the policy? It is replacing these physical textbooks with digital textbooks, or digital online work. Okay, let's look at the options. A, the governor based his decisions on his film experiences. No, it discusses his film experiences, but in nowhere does it say that he uses that experience, and also this is not required to get to the conclusion. Whether he did so or not does not affect whether this is a common sense decision. B, the proposed use of information technology will save money. This is key. We're told nowhere in the passage that this policy will actually be effective in creating savings. We're told that students are likely to readily accept the technology and be able to use it effectively, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a savings from this policy. So that's the key assumption. C, students will like these devices better because they play computer games. No, it says that the computers are going to enable them to be their experience with computers is helpful, in meaning that they'll accept the technology, not necessarily that they will prefer it. D, the government considered textbooks to be outdated. Well, this definitely can't be an assumption because he says it right here that they are outdated, so it's not unstated in the passage. E, students cannot currently access online work for maths and science. Now, this isn't an underlying assumption because we still have this problem of high cost of school textbooks. So even if it were the case that they could currently access online work for maths and science, if they were unable to access it more in such a way that it would mean you could replace the school textbooks, then it's an effective solution. But also it seems quite clear from the passage that they don't currently have access to this technology. So it's not E. Which one of the following is an assumption underlying the above argument? So another assumption. Recent news stories have mistakenly implied that animals can understand mathematics better than humans. Participants in a study were asked to state a choice of one of three doors, behind one of which there was a prize. Then the researcher opened one of the other doors, revealing that there was no prize behind it. Asked if they would like to change their choice, most chose not to change. Switching to the remaining closed door would have increased their chance of winning. Even after playing the game many times, which allowed them to observe that they would win more often if they switched, most did not do so. When pigeons played a similar game, after a few attempts they switched every time. So the pigeons learnt from experience, whereas the people overanalyzed and became confused. So the conclusion of this passage is that pigeons learned from experience and not through a better understanding of mathematics. That's why the recent news stories are mistaken in implying this. It's saying that the actual reason was that the pigeons were learning from experience, whereas the people overanalyzed became confused, and not that the pigeons have a better understanding of mathematics than humans. Now, key to this is, well, doesn't learning from experience in this way imply some kind of understanding of mathematics, some kind of understanding of probability perhaps? And that, I think, is going to be the answer. But look at the options. A, birds are better than human beings at learning from experience. No, it's saying the absolute opposite of this. It's disagreeing with that. B, most people did not notice that they won more often if they switched. It doesn't require that people didn't notice. It's unclear whether they noticed. It says that they were able to observe this, but perhaps they didn't notice it still. But it also says that people overanalyzed and became confused, so perhaps they did notice it, but then they decided to weigh that against other considerations and confuse themselves. So I don't think that's an assumption, and it's certainly not required to get to the conclusion. C, the people were no better than the pigeons at calculating probability. No, I think the author of this passage believes that people are better than pigeons at calculating probability because they can understand mathematics better. D, most people thought the probability of winning remained the same. No, that's not required for the conclusion, it's very similar to B. E, learning from experience is not a mathematical process. Exactly. Just because the pigeons learnt from experience does not mean that recent news stories are mistaken when they imply that they can understand mathematics better. Perhaps they can understand mathematics better because they were able to learn from experience in this way. What is the longest journey time I can expect the journey to work to take? Central Avenue is a long straight road, several kilometres long. Both my home and my office are on Central Avenue, and the diagram below shows their positions. Home, office. Together with two sets of traffic lights that lie in between. Both sets of lights turn to green for Central Avenue traffic simultaneously, showing green for exactly 2 minutes, turning green again exactly 2 minutes later. I cycle to work every morning at a steady speed of 5 metres per second, except of course while waiting at traffic lights. Okay, so what is the longest journey it can take him to go from home to office? Now let's find out the total time it would take him if there were no traffic lights, and then we can add in the total maximum waiting time he might have at traffic lights. So what is the total distance? First of all, it's 400 plus 900 plus 500. 400 plus 900 is 1,300, plus 500 is 1,800 metres. We know it takes him 5 metres per second, so how many seconds is it going to take him? 1,800 divided by 5 is going to be 360 seconds, which is of course 6 minutes, dividing that by 60 seconds. Okay, so now we're going to add on the waiting time. So let's say he waits the maximum amount of time at the first set of traffic lights. That is of course 2 minutes. They've just turned red again. So that's 2 minutes. Okay, but then when we get to the second set of traffic lights, how long could he possibly wait, knowing that they will have turned green at this exact same time as the first set of traffic lights? So here, they've just turned green. Now, what time is it when he arrives here? So 900 metres divided by 5, this is 180 seconds, that is 3 minutes. So it's 3 minutes later, they've been green for 2 minutes, now they've turned red for 1 minute, they have 1 more minute of red, so that's another additional minute, 1 minute. So it's total 3 minutes waiting time, plus 6 minutes travelling, so that's 9 minutes. Question 7. How much will it cost me to send the items? Okay, the United States Postal Service has an online guide to help people using their postal service. This is an extract. Okay, we're not going to look at all this detail just yet. I want to send 2 items through the post using first class mail. One is 50 centimetres long, 25 centimetres wide, 10 centimetres, okay, and the other has these dimensions. Okay, great, so let's have a look at each one in turn, and then we can browse the rest of the information to see if we've missed anything. So the first item, 50 centimetres by 25 centimetres, and we want to send it by first class mail. So which category is it going to go into? The first thing we're going to do is identify, is it a letter or is it a parcel? So let's look at both of them. For letters, they can have the maximum dimensions of 30 centimetres long and 16 centimetres wide. So the first one here is just not going to fit the dimensions of a letter, it's going to have to be a parcel. Okay, let's look at the second one, 20 centimetres long by 12 centimetres wide. Okay, this is going to fit this, yeah, 1 centimetre thick, yeah, it's less than that, and maximum weight 360 grams, yes, less than that. So it is going to be letter, perfect. Okay, let's do the letter first. So we know that this is 110 grams, the first 30 grams are 44 cents. Okay, and then for each additional 30 grams, it's 17 cents, or part thereof. Okay, so what is 110 minus 30? It is 80, and so dividing 80 by 30 is 2 and a bit, so it has to be 3 additional sets of 30 grams, each of which is 17 cents. 17 times by 3 is going to be 51, so the total is going to be 95 cents. Okay, what about the parcel? Let's check first of all that the parcel, no, we don't have to check that, that's fine, because it has to be one of the options. Okay, and it weighs 300 grams. So first 30 grams for a parcel is this, and then each additional 30 grams is this. Okay, so 300 minus 30 is 270 grams. Divide that by 30, that's 9 sets of 17. 17 times 9 is 170 minus 17, which is $153 cents, so $153, plus the 122 for the first 30 grams gets you to 275. So 275 plus 95 is going to be 375 minus 5, 370. The answer is C. So question 7 took us a little bit longer, but hopefully this one will be quite quick. Which one of the following is not a side view of Thomas's paperweight when it's placed flat on the table, either side up? Below is Thomas Leslie Fuller's brass paperweight, TFL knife, which shows his initials. Okay, so let's look at each side first of all, and let's draw it. Because we know there's 5 options, it's going to show each of the 4 sides. It's going to look like something like that, and this side is going to look something like this. Then this side is going to look like this. Okay. So this one, A could be this one, just if you turned it around. Oh, and no, it couldn't be because of this section, but it could be this one. So A is one of the sides. B. Now B looks a little bit like this one, but we see it should be even. They should be on the. Both of these should be towards this end, right, around here, because it's the F, and this doesn't look like an F, so it can't be this. So this is not one of the sides, and so it looks like this is going to be the answer. Let's have a look at C. C looks like it could be this viewed from this angle. D looks like it could be this, just flipped around. And E looks like, Yes, this is clever. E looks like A, just spun around. So what they've done to try to trick you is they haven't shown 4 different sides, they've shown 3 sides with one of them appearing twice. And so it's not E either, it's B. Which one of the following, if true, most weakens the above argument? Action should be taken to prevent the use of children as low-cost labour in poor Asian countries, in industries such as electronics, garment, shoe and toy manufacture. Nothing short of a ban on child labour is acceptable. So this seems like the conclusion. They want a ban on child labour. Child labour is an attractive proposition for employers. Children have quick fingers, good eyesight, and are often more productive than adults, and do not have to be paid very much. And there's a ready supply, thanks to the number of children dropping out of education because their parents cannot afford to educate them. If children have to work, they are denied their childhood and education. Okay, so anything that suggests that maybe it's not so bad if children work and that they can still access their education, or maybe it helps the family in some way because maybe they earn more income, or that maybe that this isn't actually a very large problem, that very few children, if any, are participating in labour. So let's have a look at the options. Or perhaps, that a ban would be ineffective at tackling this problem, maybe it would make it worse in some way. Let's look at the options. A. Laws governing the minimum age for employment do not exist everywhere. That's irrelevant. And clearly they don't exist everywhere because child labour is being accepted in some places. B. It is well known that children work more consistently than adults. No, that children are more productive, it seems, is not a very good reason. It accepts this in the paragraph to allow them to work. C. Without the children's wages, the family cannot afford to educate them anyway. So this is a good weakening of the argument. It suggests that they're not being denied their childhood and education because maybe they would still have their childhood, but they wouldn't have their education if they didn't do this labour. D. Without cheap child labour, the cost of manufactured goods would rise. This doesn't weaken the argument because the argument's core is that this is harming the children and not that this is harming society as a whole. E. International agencies have long been pressing for free education for all. No, that's a reason almost to support the argument. So the answer is C. Which one of the following is the best statement of the flaw in the above argument? During the Industrial Revolution, savvy entrepreneurs realised canals were a cost-effective, efficient way to move goods across the country. Gradually, however, canal carriage was replaced with other modes of transportation that were faster and cheaper. In 21st century Britain, most businesses choose to use road haulage as a means of transportation. With the rise in fuel costs and introduction of low emission zones, road haulage is now becoming less practical and economical. As the roads grind to a halt, it will not be long before the canals once again become the backbone of goods transportation. Whoa, that's a big conclusion. Just because it's getting less practical and economical doesn't mean that it's becoming so much less practical and economical that canals are now an attractive option, or that the next best alternative to road haulage is canals. So let's have a look at the options. A. Canal transport is unlikely to be as fast as road haulage. Now this is getting towards the idea that we are getting towards, but I don't think it's going to be the answer because it doesn't sum it up particularly neatly. The key issue is probably not that canal transport is just so much slower than road haulage, and I think it's actually that it's much more expensive or it's much less impractical. So B, canals are not as convenient as the road network. Again, for similar reasons, the key is not that canals are not as convenient as the road network. It is that they are seriously more expensive, I would expect, or that there are other alternatives available. C, it may be possible to make road haulage cheaper. Again, getting towards the same idea, yes, there are other alternatives to just going back to canals, but I don't think that puts it particularly neatly. D, it may be very expensive to reopen the disused canals. Again, still getting towards the idea that there are other costs considered, other problems involved in switching to canals. But I think the best summary of this is E. Canals may not be the only alternative to road haulage. And that's the key reason. If somebody said to you, oh, the roads are getting really difficult, that means we need to use a different mode of transport, your immediate thought wouldn't be, oh yeah, that definitely means we're going to use canals. There are other options available. Which of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the above argument? The presence of an ethical symbol, such as right or wrong, in a proposition adds nothing to its factual content. If I say to someone, you acted wrongly in stealing that money, I'm not stating anything more than if I had simply said, you stole that money. In adding that this action is wrong, I'm not making any further statement about it. I'm simply evincing moral disapproval. It is as if I said, you stole that money, in a tone of horror, or written it with exclamation marks after it. No tone or exclamation mark adds nothing to the literal meaning of the sentence. It merely serves to show the expression is attended by certain feelings in the speaker. So I think the key conclusion here is that when you use ethical symbols in a sentence, you are not providing any additional factual content, you are only providing certain feelings, or noticing or highlighting certain feelings that you feel about this. So A, adding to a statement that words right or wrong does not alter its factual content. I think this is the key. Let's have a look at the others. B, you acted wrongly in stealing that money just means you stole that money. No, it's not saying that they're identical. It's saying that they contain the same factual content, but this contains additional expressive content. C, when somebody states that something is wrong, they're making a statement of fact. No. D, how people feel about an action is not relevant to the issue of whether it is right or wrong. No, it's not saying that at all. That's clearly irrelevant, right? E, saying that something is right or wrong is just a way of showing disapproval. No. This is not saying that the only reason or the only consequence of saying that something's right or wrong is that you show your disapproval of something. All it's saying is that when you say something's right or wrong, you're not adding anything factual. You're adding something expressive. Which one of the following holiday possibilities leaves him with as near to £600 as possible? Near to £600 as possible. So it should cost as, it's not that it's going to be the cheapest, but it's going to be the closest to having 600 left. And David is planning a holiday for himself and his wife, 2 people. He has a budget of £2,000. Okay, so that means which of those comes closest to a cost of £1,400? Below is a table showing different holiday possibilities. Okay, there's a lot of options here, so we're just going to go through the 5 here and try to see very quickly which we can eliminate. Let's go through the first one. A, 10 nights in Moscow travelling by ferry and train. Okay, so we know that ferry and train is 250 per person, so that's 500, plus the 10 nights, 120 times by 10 is 1,200, so this is a total of 1,700. This doesn't seem particularly close to 1,400, but we'll see what the next one is. B, 12 nights in Cyprus, so 40.5 per person per night, so in total per night is going to be £85, times by 12 nights. So let's do that calculation. So we know this is going to be 850 plus 170, and that's going to be 1,020. Okay, so the accommodation is going to cost 1,020, and then the plane ride is going to cost 195 times 2, which is 400 minus 10, 390. So 1,020 plus 390 is 1,410. 1,410. So we know it's not A. C, 12 days and nights in Scotland is going to be 80 per night for 2. So 80 per night times by 12, that's going to be 960, because 8 times 12 is 96, plus £40 per day for the car hire and fuel, times by 12, so 4 times 12 is 48, times by 10, 480. And so 960 plus 40 takes you to 1,000, plus another 40, 1,040, plus 400, 1,440. So it's not going to be this, because this is B is still closer. D, 12 nights in Rome travelling by plane. Okay, Rome, 120 per night for 2, 120 times by 12. So 12 times 12 is 1,440. That's already further away than B. So it's 140 greater than. B, 7 nights in Paris travelling by plane, 180 times by 7. So that's going to be 56 plus 7, 1260. Okay, and then the plane is going to be 160, 260 plus 160, which takes us to 1420. Very close, but the answer is B. Question 13. What mass of sunflower seeds must be used to successfully complete this task? Table below shows the energy values for the main foods used by volunteer wardens at a wild bird reserve to preserve a variety of feed mixes. Okay. A trainee volunteer has been asked to prepare a sample of a special mix to provide exactly 5,000 calories. He's weighed out the first 4 ingredients but cannot read the required mass of the final ingredient because of an ink blot. This is what has been weighed out so far. Okay, awesome. So we just need to see how many calories are there currently, and then how much of sunflower seeds do we need to add to get to 5,000. So mealworms, 150 grams. So we've got this in terms of 100 grams. So we just times this by 3/2. So that's 150 plus 75, which is 225. We can cross off our mealworms. Apples. Okay, we don't need to know this. Apples, 350, again, times by 3/2. This is 175 times by 3. 525. Okay, don't need to know this. Okay, sunflowers, raisins, 300. So 250. Okay, so 250 is 2.5 times by 300. Quick way of doing that is times it by 5 divided by 2. 300 times by 5 is 1,500. Divided by 2 is going to be 750. Okay, and then suet is 125 grams, so that's going to be 5/4 times by 800, which is of course 1,000. So let's add all of these up. This is 750. 750 plus 750 is 1,500, plus 1,000 is 2,500. Okay, so we're only halfway there. So how many sour seeds do we need to get to this? 2,500 divided by 500 is going to be 5. So 5 times by 100 grams is going to be 500 grams. The answer is A. Which one of the following graphs could correctly show the distance between Sue and Freya? Sue takes her dog Freya to the park. She throws a stick for Freya to fetch. Freya runs to collect the stick and brings it back to Sue. While Freya is collecting the stick, Sue walks slowly towards Freya. Okay, so they're currently, imagine they're right next to each other. Maybe we do it like this. This is Sue, and this is Freya. Okay. She throws a stick, so Freya goes away, runs to collect the stick, and then is going to come back. And in the meantime, Sue is going to walk slowly towards Freya, so she's coming a little bit here. While she's collecting the stick. Yeah, okay. So we can see what's happening is the distance between them is going to grow and then shrink. And so let's have a look at the options. So no, this is starting with them being far apart. So it needs to start with them together again in both periods. Yeah, these can be an option. This is not an option. No. Okay, so between B and D. Question is the coming together again faster or slower? And I think the coming together again should be faster because they're both moving towards each other. Means that it should be B, less time spent on it. And that's the answer. Which of the following can be drawn as a conclusion from the above passage? The funding of the BBC through a universal licensing system is considered by many to be outdated and unfair. There seems to be only a limited number of options for the continued funding of this public broadcasting network. Firstly, the licence fee system could continue as at present. Secondly, the BBC could raise its own revenue as a commercial company through advertising and sponsorship. Finally, the BBC could be paid for, like other parts of the public sector, through general taxation. So 3 options: continue, go private, and we pay for it through general taxation rather than through the licence. Funding the BBC through taxation may raise questions about the BBC's independence from government. This independence must also be put at risk if the BBC had to operate as a commercial company. It might be unduly influenced by its advertising and sponsorship customers unless serious safeguards are in place. So what is the conclusion towards this? It suggests in this passage that the two other options won't work for its independence from government or from other financial interests. So in order to maintain its independence, it needs to continue as it is. So let's have a look at the options. There is no alternative to license fee. No, it's clearly set out alternatives. It's whether these are viable while maintaining its independence. B, the independence of the BBC is inevitably at risk. No, it doesn't say it's inevitably at risk because the option that's continuing at the moment doesn't seem to involve a risk to its independence. C, although not perfect, the licensing fee is the best option. Now this could be a conclusion of the passage, but I think it's a bit of a strong conclusion because it's only really talked about threats to the BBC's independence when there's other considerations about what could be better for the BBC. D, general taxation will not be as efficient in raising revenue as the licence fee. No, it doesn't talk about which would be more efficient, it's talking about the effects of the methods on its independence. E, commercial advertising in the BBC will damage the revenue prospect of its commercial broadcasters. It doesn't say that at all. Okay, so the answer is then, it must be C. I don't think that's a perfect conclusion from the passage, but it's a reasonable one, so the answer is C. I think now is a good time in the video just to say, if you are finding this helpful, please do let me know by liking it or by leaving a comment. And if there's anything else that we might be able to provide online or on this channel that could help you with your TSA preparation, please let us know. Okay, question 16. Which of the following is an underlying assumption of the paleontologist's argument? A paleontologist has argued that T-Rex could not have been a predator. He says this because few predators have small eyes needed to see prey, small arms needed to hold prey, and huge legs, meaning slow speed, all of which are true of T-Rex, and that there's no evidence for predation, such as bones with T-Rex teeth, embedded in them. Instead, he argues, it must have been a scavenger, as its skulls show it has a good sense of smell, and its legs were suited for walking long distances. Other scientists disagree, pointing out that many predators do not use forelimbs in hunting, that the speed of any dinosaur is very hard to assess. Okay, so we're looking at the argument of the paleontologist, that's key here, rather than of the passage. And what is the paleontologist's argument? Well, it's concluding that he must have been a scavenger. Must have, therefore, should. These are all indicators that we're looking at the conclusion. Okay, and what assumptions does he get to this conclusion? Well, the premises he has, these are not assumptions because they're stated, are that it has qualities that are unlikely to be held by a predator. And that's the first claim. And then the second premise is that it has qualities that are likely to be held by a scavenger. It seems key here, though, that there are no other options that it could have that it has qualities for that would indicate it would likely be that thing. So, for example, there's no such thing as a X that it has the right sort of arms and eyes and legs for. So let's have a look at the options. A, predators do not leave their teeth embedded in the bones of their victims. No, that would actually contradict his argument, that wouldn't support it, that would give us less reason to believe that it matters whether or not we found this evidence of predation. B, generalizations cannot be made between modern and prehistoric periods. No, again, that would contradict his argument. C, T-Rex could not have been both a scavenger and a predator. Wow, I didn't even think of that. That seems like a really great option. So here he sets them up as alternatives. It's unlikely to be a predator because it's more likely to be a scavenger, or it's likely to be a scavenger because it's unlikely to have been a predator, but of course it could have been both. So let's have a look at the other options. D, all predators must be able to move quickly. It doesn't say that, and it doesn't require that to get to the conclusion. All it's saying is that if it is moving slowly, it's more likely not to have been a predator. E, there are not enough fossilised remains yet for scientists to make a judgment. No, again, that would undermine his argument, which is based on the fossilised evidence we have. So I think the answer is C. And it is. Which of the following, if true, would most strengthen the above argument? There was a 17% decline in public library use in the UK between 1993 and 2003, according to a report by CABER, Commission for Architecture and the Built Environment. They suggest this is not due to a lack of public interest in reading books. Rather, it is the authoritarian style and image of libraries with their rules about silence and fines for late returns of books. Those few libraries that have moved away from this image, such as the one in Bournemouth, which provides cafe and chill-out zones, have seen a 40% increase in library use. Therefore, it's clear that the future of the function of the UK Library Service will be more assured if all libraries follow this lead. Okay, so the key conclusion is the UK Library Service is going to do better if they all switch from this more traditional style to a more modern, relaxed style, as you have in Bournemouth. So what kind of things might strengthen this? Well, if there's other cases where it's been successful, any other evidence that suggests that there hasn't been a decline or lack of public interest in reading books, and any other evidence of that kind that might strengthen our conclusion. So let's have a look. A, the decline in public library use has not occurred in other European countries. I don't think this particularly helps. It might help if, for example, we knew that other European countries had a more modern style of libraries, but there's no indication in the passage that this is unique to the UK, that the traditional style library is unique to the UK. B, the main users of public libraries are school children looking for reference books. That doesn't particularly strengthen it one way or the other. Although we might think school children would prefer a chill-out zone, I think we'd need that to be stated in the option. C, bookshops have experienced an increase in sales since 1993. Yes, so this would be helpful because this indicates, as it says, that there's actually not been a lack of public interest in reading books. So I think it's going to be C, but let's have a look at the others. D, the use of computers in libraries has increased over the same period. No, that would actually, I think, if anything, weaken the argument because it would suggest it's not about the nature of the library, it's really about whether or not people want to read these physical books. E, few people who use new style libraries use them to borrow books. I think that's irrelevant. So I think the answer is C. What is the longest time traffic on the side road will have to wait for their lights to go green? A main road crosses a side road and the junction is controlled by a set of traffic lights. Okay, so we've got a main road, we've got a side road. And here we've got some traffic lights. The normal sequence is for the lights to go green for 25 seconds on the main road, followed by 15 seconds of green on the side road. So presumably there's some traffic lights here and maybe there's another set of traffic lights. Let's put them over here for ease. Okay. And they're going to be green on the main road for 25 seconds, and then they're going to be 15 seconds green on the side road. Okay. There is also a pedestrian phase in light when all the road lights are red. So all are red. If a pedestrian presses a button across any of the roads, then after the side road lights have gone green, the pedestrian lights turn green for 10 seconds. Following a pedestrian phase, the main road green period is increased to 35 seconds to clear the build-up. Whenever any of the lights change, there is a 2-second period when all lights are red. The time on amber is included in the green times given above, so just forget about green, about amber. What is the longest time traffic on the side road will have to wait for their lights to go green? Okay, so let's imagine that whenever you have a pedestrian light that comes up after the side lights have gone green. So the side lights have just gone green, now we're going to have the pedestrian lights for 10 seconds. Okay. And then following the pedestrian phase, the main road green phase is going to have 35 seconds. Okay, whenever any of the lights change, there's a 2-second period when all lights are red. So we can add 2 seconds here, and we can add 2 seconds here. Okay, and then after the main road green period has gone for 35 seconds, okay, and then there's going to be 2 seconds, and then we can have the side lights go green again. Okay, so that gives us 45 plus 6, which is 51. So the answer is D. 19. Which other grandchild's birthday is on the same day of the week as Ryan's in a leap year? Okay, Elsie has 6 grandchildren. Their birthdays are as follows. Remarkably, in non-leap years, the boys' birthdays are on the 50th, 150th, 250th, and 350th days of the year, whilst the girls' birthdays are on the 120th and 321st days, and all 6 are on different days of the week. Okay, so we need to check what day it's going to be, and then we need to see are they on the same multiple of 7. So in a leap year, we're just going to add 1 to all the dates that come after 28th February, 29th February, given that it's a leap year. Each of these, so Ryan's is still, of course, on the 50th, but this is now going to be 151st, 251st, 351st, 124th, 322nd. Okay, and they're all 6 on different days. Perfect. So there's only going to be 1 other person. That makes it easier. Okay, so let's see what day his is going to be. Well, his day is going to be 50 divided by 7. It's going to be 7, remainder 1. So whichever can be divided by 7 and also have remainder 1 is on the same. It's going to be on the same day of the week. Remainder 1. Okay, 151 divided by 7. No, this is going to be 1 remainder 4. So it's not going to be the 150th person. We'll connect these to which of the people they are in a second, recognising that they haven't been listed in the same order. 251st person, 251 divided by 7 is going to be 3, 4, 7 remainder, 7, 5 remainder 6. So it's not going to be this person. 351. Yes, this is clearly going to be the one, isn't it? 351 divided by 7 is, of course, 5, 0, remainder 1. So it's going to be whoever is on the 351st day. Okay, and that is going to be a boy. So we can remove Rebecca. Presumably Ruth is the girl as well. Okay, and he's the boy with the latest birthday. So that's going to be Robert. The answer is D, Robert. When can I assume that he intends to appear? Whenever my friend Alistair writes to me, he does so entirely in code. He always uses symbols for letters, but changes the code each time, so any particular symbol does not necessarily stand for the same letter of the alphabet every time. I always start to crack the code by looking at how he's written his name at the end of the letter. For instance, last time he wrote, okay, so this is his name last time. This there, okay. In my last letter to him, I asked him when he intends to visit me next. Today I've received a reply consisting of just one word as follows. Okay, but the code is going to be different, but it's not necessarily entirely different. Because he said it doesn't necessarily stand for the same letter, but it doesn't necessarily change either. Okay. What we know is that certain letters have to be the same. So this has to be the same letter as this. So the fourth and the last letter have to be the same. So let's just check through these. Which of those don't have that? Well, tomorrow, no, can't be A, can't be B, can't be C, can't be D, has to be E. Let's just check. With the other letters, we know that this letter and this letter are the same, the third and the penultimate letter, that's also the case here. And I think that's enough to check it. So the answer is E. Question 21. Which one of the following is the best statement of the flaw in this argument? The government are transferring the cost of university education from the state to the student. This is described as a reform which will put universities' finance on a sustainable footing with more freedom and less bureaucracy. In addition, it will lead to a greater choice for students with a focus on high-quality teaching. The rise in tuition fees to £9,000 per year, making the cost of a 3-year degree £27,000, should not be considered as too high. After all, the cost of a Mercedes-Benz B-Class sports model is about the same price on the roads as a 3-year degree. Bizarre. This should put the rise in tuition fees into perspective, and we conclude the tuition fees are very reasonable. Okay, is this a particularly reasonable comparison? No, and I think that's going to be the flaw of the passage. Now, why on earth we should decide that something is reasonable or not by comparing it to a Mercedes-Benz B-Class sports model, I don't know. So let's have a look at the options. A university education is worth more than a car. No, that would actually support the passage because it would tell us that we should be willing to pay more for it, perhaps. B, the cost of a car is not relevant. Yes, this is it. And certainly not the cost of this car. C, transferring the cost from the state to the student is not fair. No, it's not going to be this one. That's just directly contradicting the passage. It's not a flaw. D, there is no evidence that students will have greater choice. Well, I think we can take it for granted that it's going to result in more freedom for the sake of this question. E, universities will have to raise the fees in future. Again, it's not saying that tuition fees are always going to be reasonable. It's suggesting that tuition fees, as they're set out, are reasonable. 22. Which one of the following most clearly parallels the reasoning using the above argument? Love these questions. You probably don't have to be a cat lover to enjoy The Great Race, an excellent short film about a Yorkshireman who goes running with and against his one-eyed cat. Now he wants to make it a full-length film, but this is a mistake. 8 minutes of feline fun is about as much any audience can take. Cats are like babies in this respect, endlessly fascinating their own owners, enjoyable only in small bursts for everyone else, short bursts for everyone else. Okay, now this one, I actually perhaps wouldn't use the algebra method just because most of the passage is just contextual information. The key thing that we need here is that cats are like babies, endlessly fascinating to their owners, only in short bursts of interest for everyone else. Well, let's have a look at the options. A, almost any subject can be made into a short film. However, there are very few which are interesting enough to be made into full-length movies. No, the argument doesn't say this at all. It says that this is a topic which is not interesting enough to be a full-length movie. It doesn't say that there's only few topics which are interesting enough to make full-length movies. It may be that this is one of those rare topics that isn't interesting enough to be made into a full-length movie. B, when you study history, the first things you learn about a new topic or period can be dull. The interest lies in the increasing fascination of the arguments and detail you discover as you read more deeply and get to know it, and the people better. No, this just seems a little irrelevant. C, it is always a mistake to assume that just because people like you, they share your enthusiasm for babies and cats. No, I think this is irrelevant because people haven't taken to the movie because they like the creator. They've taken it because maybe they like cats, or maybe because it is just an excellent short film. D, my friends are just back from holiday. I shall be keen to see a few photographs, but dread being invited around for a whole evening, being enthusiastically shown pictures of the same group standing in front of different places. This looks exactly the same. This is the kind of thing where it's fascinating for you in any length, but for other people only in short bursts. E, the problem with making films about subjects such as cats and babies is that there's not enough variety in their behaviour to be interesting for more than a short period of time. The passage actually doesn't give us a reason why these things are fascinating only for a short period of time for other people. And so there's no reason to think that this is because of a lack of variety. It may just be because of a lack of connection. Which one of the following best matches the principle underlying the above argument? The university's minister faced a torrent of criticism when he suggested that students could find themselves cut-price degrees at the last minute as universities charging the new maximum fee of $9,000 would slash prices to fill any vacant places. The chair of a group of student unions attacked the proposal, saying if a student qualifies for a place, they will pay one amount, while someone who fails but then gets an unfilled place at the end will somehow pay less. Clearly, this turns justice on its head. Okay, so what is the principle? What is the sort of evaluative judgment that is being used here that could be applied in another case? And I think it's indicated by the last sentence that this turns justice on its head, that this would be unfair, and that actually we're using the opposite criteria then would be fair to reach our conclusion. So we're rewarding people who have failed over those who have qualified by allowing them to pay less. So let's have a look at the options. A, if you wait until the last minute to book a holiday, you can often pay less than if you book well in advance. So two things I'd say about this one. Firstly, there doesn't seem to be any evaluative judgment, so it's not an application of the principle, it's just a description of a scenario. And B, I would say about this, that it's not indicating that it actually seems to be very fair, right? If you pay in advance, it seems that you have in some way done better and deserve to be rewarded than if somebody's booking it last minute. B, someone who applies for a job after the closing date should not be appointed over someone who applied in time. Yeah, so this is pretty similar, and so I think this could be an option. Somebody who has done things correctly should be rewarded over someone who has not done something correctly. It would be unfair to reward someone who has done things incorrectly over someone who has done things incorrectly. What gives me a little bit of hesitation here, in particular, is that when you apply for a job is not the most important criteria in determining what your outcome should be. It seems the most important criteria would be if you're the most qualified person for that job. In the same way that when you apply for a degree, how well you qualify for a place should be the determining criteria in what price you pay for it, rather than when you applied for that degree. So I think I'm a little bit iffy about B, but let's have a look at the font that fits better. C, it would be wrong in any competitive event to reward those who are second best more than those who win outright. This is exactly it, and it sets it. This is explaining it very clearly what we've seen in the passage. Those who do better should receive better rewards, and it's not fair to reward those who have done worse more than those who have done better. D, education should not be treated like a commodity which can be bought and sold. No, there's no indication that we shouldn't have to pay for our education, or we shouldn't be able to purchase it or sell it, but that if we do pay for it, we should be for it fairly. E, a convicted criminal should not be released early just because the prisons are overcrowded. This is tenuously related. So the answer is C. What is the largest sum she can spend without exceeding the limit? A hotel offers its guests a dinner allowance of £28.50 per night. A guest wishes to spend up to her allowance on a 3-course meal without overspending. Okay, so the key is she wants to spend a 3-course meal and she wants to spend as close as possible to £28.50 without going over. How can we get as close as possible without going over? Okay. There's different ways that we could go about this. So perhaps we will start with the most expensive option, because that would presumably have the biggest impact. So let's start with the main course. And if that doesn't work, we'll do a different route. So let's say we're going to pick the most expensive main course, 1610. And then how much does she have left? She has about £12 left, £12.40. So how could she spend that £12.40? Well, she could get the most expensive starter, £6.95. So that's just under £7 more. So that's about £23 she's on now. 23.05 exactly, but about £23. And then for the dessert, what is the most she can spend that is not £28.50? So she shouldn't be spending too much over £5. Okay, well, we're going to have to calculate exactly how much she should spend. So let's just go back to this, add these up. Yeah, so as I said, it was £23.05, 28.50 minus 23.05. £5.45. So this looks like the best option, £5.30. And so we're left with 23.05 plus 5.30, 28.35. Okay, so that's here. So we can see that it's at least this. Now we need to check, can we get any closer by switching things up a little bit? Okay. So let's say we trade down on the starter to get a more expensive dessert, such that we spend 10 pence, 5 or 10 pence more overall. How can we do that? So if we trade down the starter, we lose 45 pence. So we need to add 50 pence or 55 pence here. So there's no option in the dessert that allows us to go up 50 or 55 pence. Exactly, yeah. Okay, so that's not a way to do it. Let's trade down a little bit further on the starter. Let's trade down to smoked salmon. So we've lost 85 pence. So we need to add 95 or 90 pence. So can we do that? Yes, we can get to 90 pence. Okay. So I think that puts us on the highest possible option. Or let's have a look where we're at now actually. 1610 plus 610, that's 2220, plus 620 is 2840. Nice. So we can definitely do this. Let's see if we can go any higher. So we need to trade down to get 5p more. Okay. So let's try trading down the starter even further. So that would be, the next trade down would be £1.10. And yeah, we're definitely not going to be able to go up any higher on the dessert. So that's not an option. We can't go anywhere by trading away on the starter. But maybe we can trade down on the main course and make up for it with a trade up on the starter. So if we traded down on the main course, we'd be going down 95p. Can we go up 95p on the starter? No, we can't. And we can't go any higher on the dessert. So it looks like this is the highest we can get. The answer is D. 25. What is the slowest speed he needs to walk to lose at least 7.5 pounds if he starts at 180 pounds? Chris is an actor and recently feels he has become overweight. He aims to lose at least 7.5 pounds over the next 10 weeks. He decides he is able to walk the following number of miles over each of the next 10 weeks. Okay. Table below shows calories burnt per mile. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the distribution is, we just need to calculate how many total miles he's travelling. We've got 10 plus 16, so total 26 miles per week, and there's 10 weeks, so he's going to do 260 miles total. Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Okay, his starting weight is 180, and he wants to lose at least 7.5 pounds. Okay, so how many calories does that mean he needs to lose? Or needs to burn? Let's figure that out first. 7.5 times 3,500, 7.5. Okay, So he needs to lose, and we've got to put the point number, so he needs to lose 26,250 calories. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of calories. Okay, and this is per mile. So divide that by 260 to find out how many calories he needs to burn per mile over 260. Luckily, that's not too difficult. That's basically, well, we can do it exactly, but you can see roughly what that's going to look like already. Oops, I made a mistake here. It is, of course, 101, not 110. So if we can get to 101 calories per mile, that would be very good. And that gives us 4.0 miles per hour. Okay, 26. Which one of the following pie charts could represent the amounts of money in the accounts now? The bar charts show the amount of money in savings accounts of 3 friends at the start of the year. Since then, they've all spent the same amount of money. And the amount in Belinda's account has halved. Okay, so this is easier if you have a ruler. I think this ruler is a little bit useless, to be honest, but we can see that hers is done by about half, maybe a little bit more. So where's that on our ruler? That's about 2.5 centimetres. Okay. So, oh wow, that's gone down a lot. Okay. And then on here, 2.5 is about here. Okay, obviously it doesn't have to be enormously exact, but you get the idea. Okay, so what we can see is Belinda's is about twice what Carol has, and Arthur is about twice what Belinda has. So which of those comes closest to that? Belinda has about twice what Carol has. Yeah. Here, no, they have way too similar. Here, I would say they have way too similar. Here, this looks like about twice. And here, they looks like about twice. But then the second criteria is that Arthur has about twice what Belinda has. That's kind of here. Here is much clearer. And I think, well, we're going to have to look between A and D in a second. And then E, no, this can't work because Belinda and Arthur do not have the same. Okay, so how much more does Arthur have than Belinda? And versus, well, maybe the better comparison is versus Carol. So here it's got about, we're saying that Arthur has about 5 times as much as Carol. And here we're saying that Arthur has about maybe 3 times as much as Carol. So we get our ruler out. So here, Carol has, about just under a centimetre. And Arthur has 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Okay, so that looks, there's no perfect here, but 4.5 centimetres just versus maybe 0.8 centimetres. Yeah, it's about 5 times. So it looks like D is the answer. And it is. Which one of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the above argument? We need to find solutions to the problem of high levels of carbon dioxide emissions. A number of solutions are being proposed, but one of the most promising is that of using willow trees as a fuel for generating electricity. There are many environmental advantages in using willow. Burning wood is the environmental advantage that in doing so one released into the atmosphere only as much carbon dioxide as the trees themselves absorbed. We're not looking for the flaw in the passage, but they absorb a lot, I think. But anyway, in addition, plantations of willows will not only support the insects on which songbirds feed, but also being trees that thrive in wet areas, they will help to conserve our threatened woodlands. Other countries such as Sweden have also recognised the advantages of using willow for fuel. We should follow their example. Okay, so we should is always a good indication of the main conclusion, or almost always, and here we should follow their example. We should recognise the advantage of using willow for fuel. I think it's probably a little bit stronger than that. We should use willow for fuel. So let's have a look at the options. A, we need to solve the problem of the high rate of carbon dioxide emissions. No, that's part of the that's really a premise here because that's what's motivating our use of willow for fuel. B, we should use willow trees as a means of generating electricity. I think this is it. It's a bit stronger than how the passage has phrased it, but I think it's pretty close enough. C, using willow as a fuel will reduce the level of carbon dioxide emissions. No, this is a premise to support the conclusion, which is a call to action. D, planting willows on a large scale will help conserve our wildlife. Same. E, there are many environmental advantages in using willow trees for fuel. Again, same. All of these supporting reasons to believe. B, that we should use willow trees as a means of generating electricity. 28. Which of the following can be drawn as a conclusion from the above passage? Resilient beliefs in Baha'i recently ended their strike over low pay, which lasted 12 days and saw the region's homicide rate double. During that time, politicians accused some police officers of causing panic by encouraging looting while on strike. Now the strike has ended, they have offered an amnesty against the punishment of any striking officers as long as they did not commit any crimes during this strike. For their part, the officers have received a 6.5% pay rise and have complained that they were paid off against the public and ended their strike so they could properly police the Salvador Carnival. The government contests this and say the decision to stop salary payments to any officers still on strike is what made the police return to work. Okay, so the conclusion I would draw from this is that it's unclear why they have returned to work, but that the strike has now ended. I don't think we can draw any stronger conclusions, but let's look at the options that they have. A, the police will halve the homicide rate in Bahia or whatever it is. Now they are back at work. No, there's no guarantee of that. The region's homicide rate doubled, but we don't know why. We can't draw a causal link there, and we don't know necessarily that it can be easily brought back down again. B, the Salvador Carnival will be policed by a full-strength police force on improved pay. Well, they've definitely got improved pay. Are they going to be then full? Sounds like it. They're all back at work, it seems. So it looks like B may be the option. C, the government had to threaten to cut off police pay to get them back to work. No, it's unclear why they returned to work. Some of them, there's some suggestion that they returned back to work because they were worried about this increased crime. D, the police were happy to accept a 6.5% pay rise. No, there's actually an indication here that there were other reasons for their acceptance of this settlement. E, the government knows it was underpaying officers, which is why it chose not to punish them for going on strike. No, there's no indication that the government were happy to pay officers this increased pay or that they thought that it was necessary. It could have just been that they were forced by their political pressure. So I think the answer is B, and it is. We just completed 1 hour revision. Nice job. Let's have a quick break. At UniReach, we provide completely free online content and mentoring to help students from less advantaged backgrounds. We rely on the generosity of our mentors to volunteer their time and on donors to support our work. But if everyone that had watched an hour of our videos contributed just £2, this would enable us to significantly scale up our operations, going from helping hundreds of applicants a year to thousands. I'd like to think that our videos have provided you with at least £2 of value. If you agree, chip in at the link here. 29. Which of the following is an underlying assumption of the above argument? When preparing for exams, it's important that students do not suppress any emotional or other problems they might be having during the course of study. A good way of revealing problems is the creation of a partnership and discussion between students, parents and teachers. This is far preferable to the problems only becoming apparent with the arrival of the results causing upset and disappointment for all concerned. Therefore, if schools and colleges create as many opportunities as possible with three-way meetings between students, parents and teachers, they will make a valuable contribution to their students' achievements in examinations. Whoa, okay. So I think there's a few assumptions here, one of which is that, as much as it's important that emotions, it says, are not suppressed, it's not clear that them being revealed is going to improve students' achievements in their examination. It doesn't tell us how that would happen. Secondly, it's unclear that just because you have these partnerships, that they will be effective at revealing problems of the right kind. So let's look at the options anyway. Firstly, other factors besides emotional problems are not important in terms of examination sex. It doesn't require that at all to get to its conclusion. It may be that this is a relevant factor, there's other factors as well, but if this factor is improved, then results would improve, so that's not the issue. B, the three parties involved are able to exchange views constructively when they meet. I think this is an underlying assumption. Whether it's the most important isn't clear, but I think that is definitely one of them. C, students often do not communicate as well as their parents, with their parents as they do with teachers. This isn't required for the passage. D, the problems revealed by three-way discussion can always be solved. It doesn't say that it's required to solve these problems, but that in some way releasing them is going to be beneficial. And E, emotional factors are just important for student success and academic ability. It doesn't have to be the case for this conclusion that they're as important as a student's abilities academically. It could be that they are one of the relevant factors. And so the answer is B. What was his average speed on the second journey? David has a new cycle computer but has not learned all the functions yet, so can only read the cumulative mileage and average speed of all the journeys since he fitted it. On his first journey, using it, he covered 15 kilometres at an average speed of 30 kilometres per hour. He can work out from this that the journey took him 15 to 30 hours, or 15 or 30 hours, or exactly 30 minutes. Okay, Interesting. After the second journey, his cumulative mileage was 24 kilometres and overall average speed 30 kilometres per hour. Okay, so what do we need to calculate his average speed on the second journey? We need to find out what distance did he travel on that journey, and how long did it take him, divide distance by time, and that would be his speed. So, how can we find out what distance he travelled? Well, the cumulative mileage was 24 kilometres, the first journey was 15, so he travelled 9 additional kilometres. Okay, how long did it take him? His first journey, 15 or 30 hours, or exactly 30 minutes. Oh, okay, 15 over 30 hours, or exactly, so it took him 30 minutes. Okay, they've just phrased it a little bit confusingly. Okay, and now we need to find out the time it took for his second journey. The way we can do that is that we can take the total speed, the average speed over the total journey, the total distance, and we can find the total time. Okay, because speed is distance over time, so we can find the total time by doing distance over speed. So the total distance was 24 kilometres, the total speed, the average speed was 32, and so this is clearly 3 over 4, 7.75 hours, so that's going to be 45 minutes. So the second journey took him 15 minutes. Okay, so we have 9 kilometres on the second journey over 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. 9 kilometres times by 4, 36 kilometres per hour. That's his speed on the second journey. How many combinations are there in the range 000 to 999 where all 3 digits are different? I've bought a combination lock for my bicycle. The combination is a 3-digit number in the range 000 to 999 and is currently set to the manufacturer's default combination of 999. Before I use the lock, I need to set the combination. I want to use a combination where all 3 digits are different. So basically all of this is irrelevant. This is the question. Okay. I think the quickest way to do this is to find all the ones where all the 3 digits are the same or 2 of the digits are the same, count all of those and then minus it from the total. And hopefully it's on the shorter end of this, or we can find a way to quickly count them up. So the most obvious one is that we know that from this to this, where all 3 digits are the same, there's 10 of those. So that's 10 for certain. And so it's not going to be E, because there's also the ones where at least 2 digits are the same. So we found 10. Okay. Now what about the cases where only 2 digits are the same? So if we can look like this, we have 110, then we have 111, which we've already counted. Then we have 112, 113, 114, 115, and so on, up to 119. Now, there are 9 types of this. Okay, then we have the option where where you have 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, which of course, again, we've already counted, 2, 1, 1, all the way up to 9, 1, 1. And again, there's 9 of those. Okay, and then finally, we have the option where we have 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, again counted, 1, 2, 1, and so on, until we get to 1, 9, 1. And there's 9 of those. Okay, so there's 27, and there's 1 of those for each of the options, all the way from 0 to 9. So 10 times 27, there's 270 of those, plus the initial 10, so we get to 280. Okay, so there's 280 where either 2 digits are the same or 3 digits are the same. So how many combinations are there where all 3 digits are different? There's going to be the total different options minus 280. Now the total different options are 999 plus 1, because you've got the 000, so it's 1,000 minus 280, which is going to be 720. B. 32. A regular octahedron is a solid composed of 8 equilateral triangles, as shown in the image below. Which one of the following paper shapes will fold into an octahedron? So these are really tricky to do, and they're quite tricky to explain as well. But the way I think about this question is the points. So we want to get the 4 sides to fold to get to each of these points. That's clearly not going to happen for A. Right, so imagine this is the point. How does this come around? It can't, so this can't be the top. For B, well, there's 1 point there, and it looks like we can have the 4 sides to it. And there seems to be 1 point there, so it seems that you could have the 4 sides to it there as well. So to me, it looks like B is plausible, but let's have a look at C. So maybe the first point is there, but where is the second point? It's very unclear, right? Maybe it's there, but this doesn't look particularly possible. Here, one of the top points, okay, and then the bottom point, maybe it's here, but this is going to be uncomfortable when it folds round. so I don't think this is going to work either. E, 1 point there, and then the other point is here, which shouldn't look like that, should it? So that can't be right. So the answer is B. Appreciate that's not necessarily the best explanation, but with these ones you really just have to visualize it in your head. Question 33. Which of the following, if true, most weakens the above argument? It is a strange fact that many people find violence entertaining as long as it's fictional. Encountering a chainsaw-wielding maniac on television in one's home is obviously less traumatizing than meeting one at the bus stop. But is it actually fun? The same is often true of reading crime novels. Take, for example, the popularity of the violent Swedish Millennium trilogy, also now made into films. Psychologists call this enjoyment the horror paradox. However, today's increase in violent and frankly unpleasant crime points that for a growing number of people, simply reading about or watching horror on screen is not enough. They need to go out to stalk and horribly kill a passerby to get their kicks. Okay, so this argument is saying the increase in today's crime can be explained by people looking for entertainment, and that entertainment is of a kind that is similar to what we see on screen, in that it involves stalking and killing passerbys. So anything that undermines either of those two strands, one, that the increase in violent crime isn't driven for entertainment, or two, that it isn't driven in this format of stalking, killing passerbys, will weaken the argument. So A, most murders take place within the family unit and are premeditated. Yes, that weakens the argument because it suggests that it doesn't involve stalking and horribly killing passers-by. B, fantasy violence in series like Star Trek or Doctor Who have been around for many years. That doesn't weaken the argument. It may be the case that they've been around for many years, but people are responding differently to them today. C, it is younger people today who watch horror films or read crime novels. It could equally be younger people today who commit violent crime or strangers. D, access to violence on DVD and TV makes a mockery of the film classification system irrelevant. And E, it is quite easy for most people to tell the difference between fact and fiction. I don't think this argument would deny that. It's about how people experience of fiction then affects what they do in fact. Question 34. Which of the following is the best statement of the flaw in the argument above? A recent peaceful demonstration against government cuts ended in violence caused by relatively small numbers of anarchists attacking police and property. Anarchism is a political philosophy, and as a group, anarchists tend to be unable to agree among themselves on exactly what it means. But what does it tell us about these events or about those involved if we call everyone with a brick in their hand an anarchist? Given that the central idea all anarchists have in common is the abolition of the state, not necessarily by violence, anarchist is a daft way to characterise the violent hangers-on of a demonstration protesting not for, but against the shrinking of the state. Okay, so what this is saying is that it is daft to characterise the people involved in these demonstrations as anarchists, because why? These demonstrations are against the shrinking of the state, and anarchists are for the shrinking of the state. So it doesn't make sense to refer to people who are acting against their own interests or against their own ideology in this way. The mistake here, I think, is that is it the case that just because they're involved in this demonstration, that they're in favour of it? Because you might imagine that anarchists are coming to the demonstration just as a source of disruption, or even to discourage, might be anti-protesters of these peaceful demonstrators. So let's have a look at some of the options. A, the fact that some anarchists are peaceful does not mean that violent demonstrators cannot be anarchists. No, that's not what the argument is saying. It's not saying that they shouldn't be described as anarchists because they're peaceful. It's saying they shouldn't be described as anarchists because of the cause that they seem to be promoting. B, the protesters against government cuts are not protesting against shrinking of the state. That would be helpful, but it seems that if you are protesting against government cuts, you are protesting against shrinking of the state. What you would like is the state to stay at the same size or grow. C, the presence of anarchists at a demonstration does not mean they agree with its official aims. Yes. Anarchists may be there simply for the purpose of disruption. D, the diverse nature of anarchism makes it possible to call anyone an anarchist, as even they do not know exactly what the word means. No, because there's still a central idea behind what anarchism is. E, the violent demonstrators want the government to increase, not cut spending. I wouldn't call this a flaw in the argument, right? When we're looking for a flaw in the argument, we're looking for a reason why the premises given don't lead to the conclusion. We're not looking for something to undermine the truth of the premises. 35. Which one of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the above argument? Acting on government advice, schools in England now provide only semi-skimmed milk to pupils. This assumes that all children are similarly at risk of being obese and ignores the benefits full-fat milk may bring to many children, including vegetarians and those who are underweight. It is another example of the government interfering unhelpfully in the way people live their lives. So, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is the government has made the wrong decision on semi-skimmed milk, and it is representative of a broader pattern where the government is interfering unhelpfully. So let's look at the options. A, the government assumes that all children are equally likely to become obese. I don't think that's the main conclusion. I think that's a premise that supports that conclusion. It's because they've made this assumption that they've got to the wrong answer. B, there are benefits in some children being given full-fat milk. I don't think, I think, again, this would be a premise. It would be a late premise, but I think it would be a premise, in that it's calling for an action in the conclusion, and the conclusion that they want to come for is the government should not be taking this decision. C, the advice is an example of unhelpful interference by the government, and I think it is the correct answer. It's very helpful to see this as well, but it's the last sentence in the passage, which is always a good indication. D, not all children should be given semi-skimmed milk at school. Yes, but it's part of a broader picture where the government's interfering unhelpfully. E, the government's advice about milk will have a negative effect on health. No, that's a reason to support the conclusion. 36. According to the clock in the interview room, when did Lucy arrive? Lucy allowed an hour to travel to a job interview, intending to arrive exactly on time. The train which she took arrived 10 minutes later by her watch. The taxi which she then took got caught in a traffic jam for an unexpected 15 minutes, and walking to the appropriate room took 5 minutes longer than anticipated. The clock in the interview room was 30 minutes slower than Lucy's watch, which was itself running 10 minutes fast. According to the clock in the interview room, when did Lucy arrive? Okay, so there's a lot of information here. What I want to take into account, what I want to first find out is how much late was she in reality, and then we can find out what does that mean in terms of the clock in the interview room. So she allocated an hour to take, but there were 3 delays, totaling 30 minutes. So 10 plus 15 plus 5. She ended up 30 minutes late for the interview, assuming her watch is on time. Her watch is actually running 10 minutes fast. So in reality, she was only 20 minutes late for the interview. Okay. Then the clock in the interview room is running 30 minutes slower than Lucy's watch, which was running 10 minutes fast. So notice here, it's not running 30 minutes slow, it's running slower than Lucy's watch, which is 10 minutes ahead. So in reality, the clock in the interview room is 20 minutes behind. 20 minus 20, we get 0, and so she's arrived on time. Right, she's arrived 20 minutes late in reality, but the clock in the interview room is 20 minutes behind. So according to the clock in the interview room, she's on time. Question 37. What will be the difference between the amount that I will pay now and the amount I paid 6 months ago? My current membership of the squash club is about to expire, and so I wish to renew it. The options available to me are given in the table below. Have not changed since I joined as a new member 6 months ago. A change in membership type counts as a renewal, not a new member. Okay. I'm currently a gold member, so always skip the table, don't investigate it just yet. Let's do the text. I'm currently a gold member, but I do not want to enter competitions anymore, as I play only once a month. I don't want to enter competitions anymore. Okay. I do need a locker when I visit, and the normal cost to hire a locker is £2 per visit. I want to choose a membership that will give me the smallest possible total cost for a full year. Okay, a lot of information. Let's find out what I paid 6 months ago, and then let's find out what I will pay now. Okay, what did I pay 6 months ago? Well, I got a gold membership, and I had free lock and free competition entry, and I was a new member, so I paid £40. Okay. What am I going to pay now? Well, I don't care which membership option, as long as it gives me the smallest possible total cost for a year. Okay. What does the membership need to include? It requires a locker. The normal cost is £2 per visit. Okay. So free competition entry is not required. Awesome. And we can ignore now the new member fees because I'm always going to be getting renewal. Okay, fantastic. So let's go through the options. If I've got a bronze, it would cost me £8, but I would have to get £2 a visit. I play once a month, so 2 times 12, I'd have to pay 24 in addition, so that gives us £32. Okay, if I got a silver for 6 months, 18, I'd have to get it twice, so £36, that's already too much. For 1 year, £28, that's cheaper, so we know that bronze isn't going to be the best option. If I got gold for 6 months, it would be £32. That is more expensive than 1 year of silver at £28. And then gold for 1 year, £52, so that's not going to be the best option. £28, silver, 1 year is the best option. Let's just check if everything we need is in it. Does it have a locker? Yes. Does it have competitions? No, but we don't need it. Fantastic. So I'm going to pay £28 now. Previously I paid £40, so this time I'm going to pay £12 less. Question 38. In which sport was the proportion of 11-year-old to 16-year-old children nearest to that for swimming? The table shows the number of children in the town of Lancaster, aged 11 and 16, who play various sports after school. Really simple. Let's see for swimming what the ratio is. 104 to 150. So that's roughly 100 to 150, so roughly 2 to 3, right? And then we're not looking at all of the options. Oh no, we are looking at all of the options because there's 5 other options. Okay, let's start with football. 120 to 180, that's roughly 2 to 3 as well. So this looks like it's going to be the answer. But let's have a look at the others. Cricket, 120 to 133, definitely not. Hockey, definitely not, 5 to 6. Tennis, okay, we can make this roughly 120 to 150, which is roughly 3 to 5, right? Sorry, 4 to 5. So that's not it either. And then squash, 51 to 97, that's closer to 1 to 2. So the answer is A, football. Question 39. Which one of the following can be drawn as a conclusion from the above passage? Many argue that successive government programmes to increase road safety have caused a progressive decline in the number of accidents on our roads. However, some observers have shown that the real number of accidents may be much higher than those officially recorded, with many accidents simply not being recorded by drivers. They also point to the fact that during the most recent period in which accidental figures decreased, hospital admission rates for road accidents have remained fairly constant. So the argument is, have successive government programmes actually been effective in increasing road safety? And it's doubting the improvements in road safety. How do we get that? Well, we can see, first of all, that we should be drawing from the passage, so it won't necessarily be stated in the passage. And then we can have a look at the premises. Well, premise 1 is the real number of accidents may be much higher than those officially recorded. Premise 2 is that even if the accident figures have decreased, hospital admission rates have remained fairly constant, so maybe the accidents are becoming more significantly dangerous. So let's look at the options. A, optimism about ever-improving road safety may be unfounded. I think that is the conclusion. I don't think we can go much stronger than that. We don't know whether they've been successful, but there's reason to doubt. B, government programmes would be unsuccessful in reducing the number of accidents. I think this is too strong. From what we've seen, it is unclear in this specific point, in reducing the number of accidents, whether they've gone up or down. It may be the case that accidents are not reported, but we don't know. And 2, the passage isn't just focused on the number of accidents, it's focused on the broader issue of road safety. So I don't think it's B. C, hospital admissions are a good way of measuring changes in the number of accidents on our roads. That would be a premise, not a conclusion, so that would support our doubt. D, road safety has improved greatly in recent years. No, if anything, it's giving us cause to doubt that. E, drivers should be required to report all accidents that occur on the road. No, it's not driving towards that action at all. We need a lot more to think that that's a good thing to do. 40. Which one of the following is an assumption underlying the above argument? What is an assumption? Something required for the argument's conclusion to be true, but not stated in the passage. Concern has been expressed about the UK government policy of expanding the number of university places available. It is argued that the economy does not need the number of graduates that this policy produces. However, graduate unemployment has actually decreased since the policy of expansion was implemented. This shows that the government has wisely anticipated the employment demands of an expanding, modern, high-tech economy, and that the policy of increasing the supply of university places is an appropriate response. So this passage is then saying, the main conclusion of this passage is saying that the government has made the right decision in expanding the number of university places available. And the way that it gets to that is by saying, well, graduate unemployment has decreased since the policy of expansion was implemented. So there's 2 things to question here. 1, has graduate unemployment decreased as a result of this policy? And 2, even if it has, is this a good enough reason to support the government policy. Because, for example, graduate unemployment decreasing may have meant that non-graduate employment has increased. It may mean that those on graduate salaries are earning less. It may mean that there's more unequal society. There's lots of other reasons why we might oppose the policy. This isn't a strong enough reason, I think, to decide that this was the right decision for the government. So let's look at the options. A, an increasing number of graduates is necessary for economic growth. No, it doesn't require that. B, modern high-tech economies will always need a substantial supply of graduates. Doesn't require that either. C, graduates have not taken large numbers of jobs previously taken by non-graduates. Exactly. So the assumption here that, in order to say this is a positive outcome, the decrease in graduate unemployment, it has to be the case that those graduates would, if they hadn't gone to university, would otherwise have been unemployed. And there's no good reason to think that's necessarily true. D, many jobs done by graduates do not require a graduate qualification. Nope. It doesn't assume that. Of course, that would undermine the argument, but it doesn't make that assumption. E, expansion of university places is always in response to the needs of the economy. It may be the case that they did it for other reasons, but I think that's really a side point. They're not core to the argument that they're making. What value should be in the position marked Y? The table below shows the mean and maximum daily temperature for Oxford for each year from 1905 to 1920, along with the moving 5-year average. The value shown beside 1920 is the average from 1916 to 1920 inclusive. 3 values are missing from the table. Okay, so we're trying to figure out what this number is. Okay, and what we have here is, we know that each of these numbers is a moving average of the 5 numbers previously. Okay, really important here. The number beside 1920 is from 1916 to 1920 inclusive. So an easy mistake you can make here is try to go try to take this number as the number in the middle, but this would be wrong. It's not like this, it is like this. It's clear that to find out Y, we need to take these 5 numbers, add them up, divide it by 5, but to do that we need to figure out what X is. Okay, how are we going to figure out what X is? Well, we need to find one of the 5-year moving averages that has included X, and where X is the only missing variable. Now we can't use this one because X is not included there, so these are all useless to us. Can we use this one? Well, but there's 2 variables because we don't know what Z is either, so that's no use to us either. So let's use this one. 13.66 multiplied by 5 to get the grand total. So we get 68.3. And so then we add up all of these numbers, find out what that comes to, see the difference between that number and 68.3, and we have X. So let's add up these 4 numbers. This and this together is 27.1. This and this together is 28.2. So these 2 together become 55.3. So 55.3 plus X should equal 68.3. So 68.3 minus 55.3 gives us X, 13. So X is 13. Fantastic. Okay, now we have everything we need to calculate Y. We're just going to add up these 5 numbers and divide it by 5. So these 2 numbers together is 27.8 plus 13.4 gives us 41.2. Plus 13.7 gives us 54.9. Plus 13.0 gives us 67.9. Fantastic. 67.9 divided by 5 gives us 13.58. For which river was the average catch per angler sending in scales the highest in any one year? Fred is carrying out a 3-year biological survey which depends on anglers sending in scale samples of fish they catch. The survey covers 5 rivers, and Fred has set a target for the number of sets of fish scales returned from each river each year. Unfortunately, by the end of the 2nd year, the number of scale sets returned has fallen well short of the target. The anglers who participated in the survey sent scales from all the fish they caught. So for which river was the average catch per angler sending in scales the highest in any one year? How do we find out the average catch per angler? Really, so let's just stop for a second. It's very clear the target is irrelevant here, so we can just immediately rub out this and this. And everything we need is going to be in these two sections. Okay, what we do is very simple. We take the scale sets obtained and we divide it by the number of anglers sending in the scale sets. And that's the average catch per angler. Okay, so what we do is very quickly, dark, 77 divided by 5 is about, 75 divided by 5 is about 15, so this is about 15. And then 125 divided by 30 is about 4, so that's a bit rubbish, so we can just ignore that. For fair, we have 8 divided by 20, that's a bit rubbish, about 4. 35 divided by 8, about 7, so again less than 15. Gwent, so it's not going to be fair. Gwent, 71 by 19 is definitely going to be lower than 15. 132 divided by 2, oh, that's very high, that's 65. But there we go, that looks very high. And so it's not going to be dark now. Tyne, 105 divided by 43 is going to be about 2. A little bit higher than 2. 66 divided by 19, nowhere close to 65. Yarrow, 80 divided by 18, about 4. 150 divided by 25 is 6. So the answer is going to be Gwent with 65 in year 2. Question 44. On how many floors could Alan have got out by mistake? Alan wishes to visit a client on floor 8 of a building with 10 floors, including ground floor. He enters the lift on the ground floor. His client has explained by email that the floors are identical, are indicated by an illuminated matrix, but there's a notice saying that 2 of the lights are not working. Okay, Alan enters the lift and pushes the button. Just then he starts to sneeze, distracting his attention from the display. The lift leaves the ground floor, travels, then stops. He glances at the display and concludes that he could be on floor 8, so he gets out. In fact, he's on the wrong floor. Okay, so essentially, he starts on the ground floor, he's gone up, and we don't know what floor he's on. Okay, he does see the display, so it needs to be plausible that he's on floor 8, right. Okay, so he's definitely not on the ground floor, so that's 1. He's definitely not on floor 1, because it would be very obvious that there's more than 2 lights missing. He could be on floor 2, because this light and this light could be the ones broken. Could he be on floor 3? Yes, if you just do it like this. So floor 3 is a possibility. Could he be on floor 4? No, there would be 3 lights missing. Could he be on floor 5? Yes. Could he be on floor 6? Yes. Could he be on floor 7? No. 3 lights missing. Or actually 4. Could he be on floor 8? Yes. Could he be on floor 9? Yes. 2 lights missing. So he could be on floor 2, 3, 5, 6, 8 or 9, so he could be on 6 different floors. Note though, it says have gone out by mistake. So we're not including 8 here. 5, the answer is A. Question 45. Which one of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the above argument? Some people believe that raw food is healthier than cooked food because cooking destroys vitamins. However, we should be grateful that our ancestors discovered how to cook. Researchers have found that people who stuck to a raw food diet for 3 years suffered from chronic energy deficiency and lost a lot of weight. Cooked food is easy to digest, so enables us to take in the necessary calories without too much expenditure of energy. Cooking also removes toxins from food, making cooked food safer. This is the result that our bodies are not very good at disposing of toxins naturally. This is not a problem, provided that our diet consists principally of cooked food. So what is the main conclusion? That our diet should consist principally of cooked food. There's reason to doubt that raw food is healthier than cooked food. And it gives us several reasons to believe that. Firstly, that people who have raw food end up worse off in various health dimensions. Secondly, that cooked food is easier to digest. And thirdly, that cooked food removes toxins from our food. Okay, so this is actually a really hard question, and I'm not sure I would get it right in the exam, but this is how I would think about it now. A, raw food is no better for our health than cooked food. Okay, so I think that this is not going far enough. Yes, it's on the broad topic of the comparison between raw food and cooked food for our health, but the passage actually gives us several reasons to support cooked food being better for our health than raw food. B, human bodies are not very good at disposing of toxins. No, this is one of the reasons to support the idea that cooked food might be better than our health. C, we should be grateful that our ancestors discovered cooking. So I think this is promising, although I don't necessarily love the phrasing of it. Why is it promising? Because it gets to the broad idea that cooked food is what, the comparison between raw food and cooked food for our health, cooked food is quite a positive one, or it should not be discounted. D, a raw food diet can cause lack of energy and weight loss. No, this is one of the reasons to get to the conclusion that we should be happy that cooked food exists or that cooked food is worthwhile for our health. And E, cooked food is both safer and easier to digest than raw food. Again, those are dimensions of health, but they're not giving us the overall picture of which is better for our health, because it may be safer and easier to digest, but it may be worse in other ways in that what if it were the case that raw food gave us less of the nutrients that we needed, and so on and so on. The passage doesn't give us enormously good reasons to prefer cooked food or raw food. It gives us some reasons why cooked food is better, and it gives us one reason why some people think raw food is better, and so we're left unsure at where this comparison is. What we're happy with at the end of this is that we have the option of cooked food, and should be grateful that ancestors discovered cooking. And so in that way, I think C offers the most justified conclusion. Question 46. Which one of the following most closely parallels the reasoning used in the above argument? The level of light pollution must be low in order to be able to observe the moon, planets, and stars. My house is in the darkness of the countryside, so stargazing will always be possible from my back garden. Okay, so the way I'd say this is A is required for B, so low light pollution is required for observing the moon, planets, and stars. I have A, my house is in an area of low light pollution, and therefore I should be able to have B, and I will always be able to have B. Now, of course, this argument is wrong. Just because A is necessary for B doesn't mean that A is sufficient for B. Maybe that other factors are required in order for stargazing to always be possible. But let's have a look at the options. A, my train must be on time if I'm going to catch my plane. So A, train being on time is required for B, catching my plane. The train is now half an hour late, so I'll not be able to get on the plane. Okay, so this is not paralleling the reasoning, because it's actually saying not A, therefore not B. And what's helpful here is noticing that this option makes sense, right? If A is a necessary condition for B, the lack of A means you won't be able to get B. But the argument here is actually fallacious, right? It is not correct to say that if you have A, you necessarily will have B, just because it's a necessary condition. B, my doctor has told me that contact with a sufferer is necessary if someone is to catch a flu. So in order to catch a flu, A is required. 10 members of my class now have flu, so I'm bound to catch it. Yes, I think this is the right answer. I have A, I've had contact with a sufferer, and so therefore necessarily the case of B, and it's equally fallacious, right? Just because I've had contact with a sufferer of flu doesn't mean necessarily that I would catch flu, because there may be other conditions required in order for me to catch the disease. C, we need to have an exceptionally high tide on this part of the coast for flooding to occur. So A is required, exceptionally high tide, in order for B, flooding to occur. There's not been a flood, so there's not been B, therefore there could not have been exceptionally high tides. Again, notice this is a different format. D, boiling water is essential to make an excellent cup of tea. So A is required for B, an excellent cup of tea. The water used to make my aunt's tea was not hot enough, so she did not enjoy it. So this is the exact same as this one here, where not A, therefore not B. E, the finest wines in the world come from France. Okay, so very hard to even put this in the structure we require here, so it doesn't look like it's going to be the answer. Question 47. Which of the following best illustrates the principle underlying the argument? Although boxing is unacceptable, other risky sports are not. When people get injured or killed in horse sports, motorsports, or while climbing, yachting, or skydiving, it is because things have gone horribly wrong. When people get killed in boxing, it is because things have gone horribly right. The aim of any boxing match is to cause more permanent brain damage to your opponent than you yourself sustain. Okay, so let's go through the options. A, laws are made to protect people from risks of which they're not fully aware. So I don't think key to this passage is whether people are aware of the risks or not. In both boxing and those other sports, people are aware of those risks. The difference is that in boxing, the risk is caused to the activity itself, the harm is caused to the activity itself, whereas for the others, risk is just a part of the activity. And if it could be removed, I think people would want it to be removed, right? B, medical treatment should be limited to those who do not pursue lifestyles which cause medical conditions. I think the difference here is not, in the passage it talks about whether these activities should be allowed to occur, not how we should relate to people who take part in them. So it doesn't say, boxing is unacceptable and anyone who participates in boxing should be, and gets injured, should be left to fend for themselves, or that they should be punished, or whatever. So I think this is a step beyond what the argument is saying. C, spectator events where people take pleasure in others' misfortune should be banned. Again, I think this is a step outside of the argument. It's talking about whether or not people should be participating in these activities, not whether other people should be watching these activities. And I don't think the opposition being stated in the passage to the activities is based around enjoying other people's misfortune, but about causing harm to others or allowing harm to take place. D, we should not make bonfires illegal in the way that arson is. I think this is exactly right. This is a parallel in the exact same way that the passage is between activities where risk is a part of them, like skydiving, like a bonfire party, and activities where risk is actually, or harm is central to the activity itself. Arson requires dangerous fire, just as boxing requires dangerous violence. E, different attitudes to risk in life can be expressed in sport. I think this is just irrelevant, right? 8. How many great-grandparents has she? Oh, no. How many great-great-grandparents has she? Amy is researching her family history. She has 2 parents and 4 grandparents. However, she discovers that among her great-grandparents, 2 sisters from one family married 2 brothers from another. Oh no. She's got her mum and her dad, so parents. Okay, each of those has their own grandparents. Okay, then each of those has their own parents. This is the great grandparents. Okay, and now we're counting the level above, which is the great grandparents. Okay, so now what we need to recognise is that among her great grandparents, 2 sisters from one family married 2 brothers from another. So this is sister 1, this is sister 2, brother 1, brother 2. So essentially, these 2 have the same parents, right? So on this side, there are only 4 great grandparents, whereas on this side there's the usual 8, right? Because we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So together we get 12. Question 49, what is the maximum profit the centre can make from a group after paying the instructors for a 2-hour session? The Westwater Canoe School offers tuition and basic canoeing skills. There are 18 canoes for students to use. The school offers a minimum instructor to student ratio of 1:6 and a minimum of 2 instructors for any group. Instructors are hired by the centre on a casual basis and are paid only for the time they actually work. Instructors are paid £6 per hour and expected to use their own canoes. The cost for students depending on the numbers in the group and the length of the session. Costs are set out in the table below. What is the maximum profit the centre can make from a group after paying the instructors for a 2-hour session? Okay, so you've paid the instructors for a 2-hour session. Okay, so we want to figure out the maximum profit the centre can make from a group. Okay, after paying the instructors for a 2-hour session. So what we want to know first of all is how many students should we have? So we know that if we've got 2 instructors, which we have to have, then the maximum number of students we can have is 12, because there's 1 for every there's 6 students for every 1 instructor. So definitely want to have 12 students. Is it worthwhile having another instructor and therefore another 6 students? So then we get 18 students. Obviously we can't go any further because there's only 18 canoes. Okay, well let's imagine for those additional 6 students, what is the additional cost for the 1 extra instructor? Well, they cost £6 per hour, so that's £12. And how much additional revenue are they going to bring in? Is it going to be greater than £12? Yes, because we know even if it was just 1 student, they would bring in £12. So fantastic. We should have 18 students. Okay, what are the costs of having 18 students? Well, the costs are the instructors. Each instructor costs £6 an hour, and there's 3 of them for each hour. So that's £18 for each hour. Times by 2 is £36 in costs. Okay, what about in revenue? In students, for the first hour, they pay £7, so 18 times by 7 is going to be 70 plus 56, which is going to be 126. For the second hour, they're each going to pay £5, so 18 times 5 is 90, so the total revenue is going to be £216. Okay. What is the total profit? Well, it's 216 minus 36, which is going to be £180. So the answer is B. Which one of the following pie charts shows the number of visitors in each age group that paid to enter the museum yesterday? The cost of entry to the Victoria and David Museum is as follows. Adults £7, children £4, senior citizens £5. This chart shows the breakdown of yesterday's total takings by age group. Okay, so we have a breakdown by the total takings, and we want to convert that into a breakdown by the number of visitors. So this is really simple. What we do is we take the revenue generated for each age group, divide it by the cost per ticket to define the number of people in that age group. Once we have those absolute figures, we can figure out what the relative proportions are and decide what the pie chart should look like. So let's do a rough idea of what the costs are. So how much revenue have we generated from adults? We've generated 350, I would say it's about 390. So 390 divided by 7 is going to be 5, 4, about 55, 56 people. Okay. For the children, we said that was about 390. So, and this we could say, if that's 550, that's about 520 maybe. So 520 minus 390 is going to be about 130. 130 divided by 4 is going to be about 32. Maybe we can round up to 33 students, 3 children. And then senior citizens, we said that was about 520, and this is about 670. 670 minus 520 is about 150, and they pay £5, so it's about 30 senior citizens. So what do we know? We know that there should be a pretty similar children and senior citizens portion in our graph, and if anything, the children section should be bigger. So what can that tell us? That C is definitely wrong. And then relative between adults and senior citizens, adults should be about double the number of senior citizens. So this is way more than double, so it can't be A. And this is way more than double, so that can't be right. So between these two, do adults have a little bit less than double or a little bit more than double? Well, they have a little bit less than double. So I think B is the closer answer.